Sweet dreams start with a story. If you love drifting off to fascinating tales from the past filled with knights, ancient secrets, forgotten rituals and whispered legends, you're in the right place. Don't miss a single bedtime journey through history. Subscribe and tap the bell so you never sleep through a story again. Sleep well. Dream deeper. Paris, 1615. The bells of Notre Dame tolled solemnly as a young girl crossed the Great Hall of the Louvre. She was dressed in silks that whispered with every cautious step. Her golden hair framed with Spanish jewels, her face pale beneath the heavy weight of ceremony. 14 years old, a princess of Spain, daughter of King Philip III, she was now Queen of France. Her name was Anne of Austria, and from the very first moment she was a stranger at her own court. The courtiers stared at her with the sharp, measuring eyes of hawks. To them, she was not merely a bride for the boy King Louis XIV. She was the representative of Spain, the great rival of France. She was Catholic to the marrow, raised in the pious shadow of Escorial towers. She was foreign, too foreign, and the French court was never gentle to outsiders. As the wedding feast swirled around her with music and laughter, Anna leaned slightly toward her confessor, whispering in Castilian, "Anna, Dios mío." They smile, but their eyes are cold. I feel as though I stand among enemies. The confessor gave her a cautious nod, warning her with his glance not to speak in Spanish. Already the whispers ran through the hall. The Spanish Queen. Will she write to Madrid? Will she betray us? And at the other side of the feast sat the boy who was now her husband, Louis, thin, serious, his expression already marked with that strange melancholy that would never quite leave him. He did not even look at her. That night, when the palace servants withdrew and the young couple were left alone, Anna tried to speak, to pierce the veil of silence between them. "Anna, my lord, we are both but children. Perhaps we might try to—" Louis turned his head sharply. "Louis, Madame, I have prayed all day for this marriage. I pray it may be pleasing to God. That is all." And with that he lay down, closing his eyes, as though sleep could deliver him from the burden of marriage. Anna lay awake, staring at the gilded ceiling, her heart tightening with the realization she was alone. A queen without love. The years that followed were bitter ones. Anna's Spanish ladies-in-waiting were dismissed, sent back across the Pyrenees. The little habits of her homeland, the Spanish songs she hummed, the dishes she preferred, were mocked. At court she was watched, suspected, whispered about. Worst of all was her husband. Louis was no cruel tyrant, but he was cold, withdrawn, always mistrustful. He hunted, he prayed, he consulted his advisers, but he seldom shared a word with his wife. Months would pass without real conversation between them. At night in her chambers, Anna confided in her fateful companion, a young maid named Françoise de Motteville, who would one day record these memories in cautious memoirs. Anna, despairing, "I am a queen, yet I am more prisoner than sovereign. The king avoids me, the court despises me. Am I not even worthy of friendship?" Motteville, softly, "Majesty, you must endure. You were sent here not for yourself, but for France and Spain. The day will come when they cannot ignore you. But how to endure when duty crushed the heart?" The shadow of barrenness. The years stretched on, and with them came humiliation. The Queen was expected to give France an heir. But one pregnancy ended in miscarriage, then another. Whispers thickened like storm clouds. A barren queen! A useless Spaniard, The king, listening to rumours that she corresponded secretly with her Spanish relatives, withdrew even further. Sometimes it was said he believed she was a spy in her own palace. Anna would kneel before the altar in the dark chapel, tears slipping down her cheeks, whispering prayers no one else could hear. Anna to herself, "Holy Virgin, grant me one son, just one, that I may no longer be despised." But heaven was silent. For more than 20 years the royal nursery remained empty, and Anna, though queen, felt like a shadow in her own kingdom. The miracle of heirs. Then, in 1638, when Anna was 37 and hope seemed lost, a miracle occurred. She gave birth to a son. Paris erupted in celebration. Bells rang, cannons fired, crowds thronged the streets shouting, "Vive le Dauphin!" The child was christened Louis Dieudonné, Louis the God-given. He would one day be known as Louis XIV, the Sun King. 2 years later, another child followed, Philip, Duke of Anjou. For the first time, Anna's place was secure. France had its heirs. The barren queen was barren no more. Yet joy was short-lived. In 1643, King Louis XIII died at only 41. His son, Louis XIV, was but a boy of 5. By law and tradition, the regency fell to his mother. The courtiers smirked, certain the Spanish queen would fail. They remembered her years of passivity, her loneliness, her silence. She is weak. She is pious. She will let others rule in her name. They were wrong. Gemmed the crown in her hands. At the late king's insistence, a will had been drawn that sought to bind Anna. It granted her regency, but only under the supervision of a council stacked with her enemies. Even in death, Louis XIV did not trust her, but Anna, for the first time in her life, showed steel. She appeared before the Parlement of Paris, her 2 small sons by her side. The hall buzzed with speculation. Would she meekly accept the king's will? No. With the calm authority of a true queen, Anna declared that a mother had the sacred right to guide her children, and that the will of the dead king could not bind the living kingdom. The Parlement agreed. The council was dissolved. Anna held full regency. The foreigner, the barren queen, the neglected wife, now she was the ruler of France. But she was not alone. Already another figure was rising by her side, a man clever, shrewd, ambitious. A man who, like her, had been treated as an outsider at court. A man whose destiny was about to intertwine with hers in ways that would fascinate Europe for centuries. His name was Giulio Mazarini, Jules Mazarin to the French, and together they would rule. The year was 1643. France stood on the edge of uncertainty. Its king was dead, its heir a child. The court, restless as a pack of wolves, watched with hungry eyes for the first misstep of the new regent, Anna of Austria. But Anna was no longer the silent, lonely queen they remembered. She had steel in her gaze now, and beside her, a man whose very presence altered the balance of power. His name was Giulio Raimondo Mazzarini, Jules Mazarin to the French tongue. The Italian outsider. He was not born to the purple, nor to a great sword-bearing lineage. His father had been a chamberlain in service to a Roman noble house, his family respectable but far from illustrious. Yet Giulio possessed something rarer than noble blood, a dazzling mind, and an instinct for survival. Trained by the Jesuits, he became a lawyer, then a diplomat, moving with feline grace through the labyrinth of Italian politics. He was charming, eloquent, and above all adaptable. Cardinal Richelieu, the great red eminence who had dominated France for decades, saw in Mazarin a worthy successor. When Richelieu died in December 1642, Mazarin stepped quietly into his place as chief minister to the king. And when King Louis XIV died months later, Mazarin stood ready beside the widowed queen. First encounters. Anna had known him before, of course. She had seen him at council meetings, observed his smooth voice and clever eyes, yet grief and regency threw them together as nothing had before. One evening, not long after the king's death, Anna summoned him to her private apartments in the Louvre. The air was heavy with candle wax and the faint perfume of Spanish roses. She stood at the window, her hands clasped, gazing out over Paris. Anna, without turning, "They do not expect me to succeed. They wait for me to falter." Mazarin bowed low, his Italian accent softening his French. "Mazarin, Majesty, they are blind. They think you are a woman alone. They forget that you have allies, and that your enemies are mine also." Anna turned then, her dark eyes searching his face. "Anna, and can I trust you, Monsieur le Cardinal? Truly." He met her gaze, steady and calm, with the faintest smile. "Mazarin, you can trust me as you trust yourself. My fortune is bound to yours. If you fall, I fall. If you triumph—" He bowed again, more deeply. "Then I shall thank heaven every day that I was permitted to serve you." It was a declaration more powerful than flattery, and Anna felt a flicker of something she had not known in years, reassurance. The whispers in the corridors. At court, tongues wagged endlessly. The Queen sees too much of this Italian. He is no Richelieu. He is soft, smiling, ambitious. She cannot rule without him. Does she love him, perhaps? Envoys wrote back to Madrid and Vienna, speculating. The Spanish ambassador reported that Mazarin had bewitched the Queen. The Venetian envoy wrote that the regency was now effectively in Mazarin's hands, and the nobles of France, greedy for power, began to conspire. Circe? A private conversation. One night, after a long council meeting where nobles had argued bitterly over taxes and war expenses, Anna and Mazarin lingered in her chamber. The candles had burned low, their flames trembling in the draught. Anna sighing. "They circle me like vultures. Condé demands more troops, more coin. Gaston of Orléans spreads rumours at every turn. And the Parlement—" She shook her head. "They think me weak." Mazarin leaned forward, his voice quiet but firm. "Mazarin, Majesty, you must be both steel and silk. Smile, flatter, promise what they wish to hear, but keep the dagger hidden. France is a theatre. Let them see what you choose to show." Anna studied him. "You speak as though life is nothing but intrigue." Mazarin, smiling faintly. "It is, Majesty, and I have lived it all my life. Let me be your shield. Trust me, and together we will master them." For a long moment silence hung between them, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Then Anna inclined her head ever so slightly. "Anna, very well, Monsieur le Cardinal. You shall be my shield. But remember, if you betray me, you betray France itself." Mazarin placed his hand upon his heart. "Mazarin, on my soul, I shall never betray you." And though it was spoken as a vow of politics, something unspoken shimmered beneath the words. A France in turmoil. Outside the gilded chambers, France trembled. The 30 Years' War still raged, draining the kingdom's coffers. Taxes crushed the poor. Nobles resented the authority of the crown. The Parlement of Paris muttered about its rights. All it would take was a spark, and soon that spark would come. But for now, Anna and Mazarin ruled side by side. She, the Queen Regent, mother of the boy king. He, the minister, the strategist, the voice whispering in her ear when courtiers pressed too close. Was it love? Was it loyalty? Was it merely a shared hunger for power? The truth was hidden in their glances, in their letters, in the silence of nights when rumour said Mazarin slipped through secret passages to the Queen's chambers. History would never know for certain, but in 1643, what mattered was this. The widow and the Italian were now bound together, and France would never be the same. Paris, 1648. The boy King Louis was just 10 years old, playing with toy soldiers in the long corridors of the Palais Royal. His laughter echoed faintly against the marble, but behind those walls France was anything but playful. The kingdom was restless. The people groaned beneath taxes. The nobles seethed at being ignored, and in the Parlement of Paris, proud magistrates whispered of their rights, daring to challenge the crown. It was the beginning of a firestorm, the Fronde. Tension in the Palais Royal. In the council chamber, Anna sat enthroned, her face calm though her heart was troubled. Beside her, as always, stood Mazarin. A delegation from the Parlement had come, robes swishing, eyes glittering with defiance. The spokesman, a tall magistrate with a severe mouth, spoke boldly. Magistrate, Your Majesty, the people can bear no more. We demand the repeal of the new taxes. France bleeds, while the court bathes in luxury. Anna's fingers tightened imperceptibly on the armrest. Before she could reply, Mazarin stepped forward, his tone silky. Mazarin, Messieurs, France is at war. The Spaniards stand at our borders. Do you propose we defend this kingdom with words instead of coin? Murmurs rippled through the hall. The magistrate's eyes narrowed. Magistrate, we propose justice. Without it, there will be no peace in Paris. The delegation departed with stiff bows, leaving tension heavy in the room. Anna turned to Mazarin, her voice low. Anna, they grow bolder each day. Will they dare rise against us? Mazarin, grimly. Majesty, they already prepare to. The Parlement is no longer content with laws. They want power. If we yield an inch, they will take the crown itself. Anna rose, her silken skirts sweeping the floor. Anna, then we shall not yield. Rumours in the city. Paris buzzed like a hornet's nest. In taverns and marketplaces, men muttered against the Queen and her Italian minister. Mazarin drains us dry. The Queen is bewitched by him. Let the Parlement defend us if the court will not. On dark nights, Anna would walk the galleries of the Palais Royal, staring at the city lights flickering beyond the windows. The city that should have adored her children now seethed with hatred. Motteville, ever loyal, found her mistress one evening gazing out with a troubled brow. Motteville, Majesty, forgive me, but you have not eaten. You stand here as though waiting for bad news. Anna's lips pressed into a line. Anna, because the bad news has already come. They say the Parlement meets in secret. They say Gaston, the king's uncle, joins them. And Condé, proud, dangerous Condé, plays both sides. Her voice faltered, and she glanced at the small chamber where Louis slept, his face innocent in dreams. Anna whispering, How do I protect him, Françoise? How do I guard a throne that the walls circle already? Motteville knelt, kissing the Queen's hand. Motteville. By standing firm, Majesty, and by trusting the one man who has never left your side. Anna's gaze drifted toward the door, where Mazarin often entered. Her eyes softened, though she did not speak the thought that hovered on her lips. The boy king learns. One winter morning, shouts rose outside the palace. A mob had gathered, furious, demanding justice from the Parlement. Louis, curious, peered from a high window. Louis, Mamma, why do they scream? Are they angry at me? Anna knelt before him, her eyes fierce. Anna, no, my son. They are angry at those who serve you. Remember this. A king must not fear the cries of the crowd. They cry today, they kneel tomorrow. Mazarin entered at that moment, bowing deeply. Mazarin. Majesty, the city grows more dangerous. I beg you, consider leaving Paris until tempers cool. Louis looked between them, his small brow furrowed. Louis. Are we in danger, Monsieur le Cardinal? Mazarin knelt to meet his gaze. Mazarin. Danger, sire, is the tutor of kings. You will learn from it, and one day you will master it. The boy said nothing, but the words carved themselves into his memory. The night of flight. The storm finally broke in August 1648. Soldiers loyal to the Parlement clashed with royal guards in the streets. Barricades of overturned carts and barrels rose across Paris. The mob cried, "Down with Mazarin! Long live the Parlement!" Inside the Palais Royal, panic rippled. Anna gathered her sons. Mazarin urged her to act swiftly. Mazarin. Majesty, we must leave tonight. If we remain, they will storm the palace itself. Anna looked down at her sleeping children. To flee the capital was dangerous, humiliating, but to stay was worse. That night, under the cover of darkness, a royal carriage slipped from the gates. Inside, Anna held Louis tightly, whispering soothing words as he stirred awake. Louis, drowsy. Mamma, where are we going? Anna, softly. To safety, my love. To where you will be guarded. Through the small window, Mazarin watched the torchlit streets, his hand resting on the hilt of a concealed dagger. He knew the truth. This was no mere flight. This was the beginning of the war between crown and city. Seeds of hatred. When Paris awoke to find its king gone, fury ignited. Pamphlets flooded the streets, mocking the queen and her minister. One cruel verse sang, "The king is but a child, the queen bewitched, and Mazarin the master of all." Nobles gathered in salons sharpening their schemes. Some whispered of seizing the boy king to rule in his name. Others plotted to force Anna to dismiss her Italian favourite. But Anna stood firm. To her small circle she declared, "Anna, they may call me Spanish, foreign, foolish, but I am the mother of the king. I will not be broken." And Mazarin, watching her with a strange mixture of loyalty and admiration, knew their bond was now sealed by fire. A queen and her cardinal. As winter deepened, the regent and her minister held council in a candlelit chamber far from Paris. Reports of skirmishes arrived daily. Alliances shifted like sand. The future hung in peril. At last, as the hour grew late, Anna dismissed her attendants. Only she and Mazarin remained. Anna, quietly, "Tell me the truth, Giulio. Can we win? Or will they tear the crown from my son's head?" Mazarin hesitated, then stepped closer. Mazarin, Majesty, so long as we stand together, France cannot unseat us. They may rage, they may rebel, but they will not break us. Not you, not me. Anna's eyes lingered on his, the silence heavy with words unspoken. Anna, then let it be so, together. And thus the stage was set. The Fronde had begun, a tempest of nobles, magistrates and mobs, but at its heart, in the quiet chambers of power, two figures stood unshaken, a queen and her cardinal, bound by politics, bound by necessity, perhaps bound by something more. The year 1649 dawned not with joy, but with thunder. Paris was no longer a city of palaces and prayers. It was a fortress under siege. Anne of Austria, regent of France, and Cardinal Mazarin held the young Louis XIV at Saint-Germain-en-Laye, while the Parlement of Paris and rebellious nobles raised their banners in open defiance. The Fronde, that great civil storm, had erupted. The city in revolt. The streets of Paris were choked with barricades. Wagons, timbers, barrels, even furniture torn from homes created walls across narrow lanes. Behind them, citizens shouted, "No more Mazarin! No more taxes! Long live the Parlement!" In the salons of the great lords, plots ripened. Gaston, Duke of Orléans, the king's uncle, flattered the rebels, pretending loyalty while feeding intrigue. And the brilliant, reckless Prince de Condé, hero of Rocroi, weighed his sword. Would he defend the crown or turn against it? Council at Saint-Germain. In the frost of January, Anna held a council in the cold halls of exile. The queen sat straight-backed, her sons nearby, while Mazarin spread maps across the table. Generals leaned in, their breath misting in the icy air. General Turenne, Majesty, the Parlement controls Paris. Supplies will not enter. If we do not act swiftly, the city will starve, or we will. Anna's eyes flicked to Mazarin. Anna, what say you, Monsieur le Cardinal? Mazarin tapped the map with a slender finger. Mazarin, we cut them off. We hold the countryside. We choke the city's trade. We let hunger fight for us. And meanwhile, we divide our enemies. The nobles are not united. Condé envie Orléans. Orléans mistrust the Parlement. Sooner or later, they will quarrel. When they do, we strike. Anna inclined her head, her expression unreadable. Anna. Then let Paris feel the weight of its rebellion. And hunger and fury inside Paris, famine spread. Bread grew scarce. Riots erupted in the marketplaces. Angry crowds marched to the Parlement demanding relief. Magistrates thundered against the Queen and her Italian sorcerer. In pamphlets passed hand to hand, Mazarin was mocked as Jewel the Jew, the foreign fox, the Queen's midnight guest. Caricatures showed him creeping through secret passages to Anna's chamber, his red cardinal's hat slipping askew. Anna, reading one such libel, crushed the paper in her fist. Anna, coldly, they think to shame me, but it is they who disgrace themselves with lies. Mazarin met her gaze, a wry smile curving his lips. Mazarin, Majesty, words are arrows, painful, but they cannot pierce steel, and you are steel. For the first time that day, Anna allowed herself a smile. The gamble of Condé. By spring, the rebellion faltered. The Parlement begged for peace, and Mazarin negotiated an uneasy truce. The royal family returned to Paris in triumph. the boy king hailed in the streets. But triumph was short-lived. Condé, the great prince, grew restless. He had defended the crown, now he demanded reward. Titles, riches, offices for his family. One evening in the Louvre, his voice rang out, arrogant and sharp. Condé. Madame, I saved your throne. I expect to be treated not as a subject, but as a partner. Anna's dark eyes narrowed. Anna, Monsieur le Prince, you are a servant of the crown, not its master. Condé's hand clenched on his sword hilt, and Mazarin, ever watchful, stepped forward smoothly. Mazarin. France needs heroes, yes, but it needs peace more. Beware, monsieur, that you do not trade your laurels for chains. Condé sneered, bowing with mock courtesy. Condé? Chains? We shall see, Cardinal. We shall see. Within weeks, Condé turned his sword against the very crown he had sworn to protect. To the exile of Mazarin, the rebellion swelled again, fiercer than before. Nobles raised armies, the Parlement roared defiance. Paris echoed with shouts, "Down with Mazarin!" At last, even the Queen's allies whispered that the minister's presence inflamed the fire. To save the regency, he must leave France. Anna received the news in private, her face pale but resolute. Anna to Mazarin. They think to tear you from me. They think without you I will falter, but they are fools. Mazarin bowed, though his eyes lingered on hers. Mazarin. Majesty, I will go, for a time, but know this. Distance cannot break what we have built. I shall still be your counsel, your servant, your... He stopped, catching himself. The silence between them trembled. Anna, softly, your queen. That night Mazarin slipped into exile, yet letters flew across borders written in careful cipher. His hand guided hers from afar, his words carrying strategy, comfort, and something that even the ink could not disguise, devotion. Alone, yet not alone. In Paris, Anna faced the storm. Crowds shouted against her. Nobles schemed to control her son. Yet at every turn she found strength in the hidden letters that reached her hands. One she read by candlelight, her lips moving silently. Majesty, my heart is tormented to be parted from you. Yet be steadfast, for soon the tide will turn. Trust me, as I trust you. All that I am for you. She pressed the paper to her lips, her eyes glistening. Anna whispering, "Julio!" Outside, Paris clamoured, but in the heart of the Queen there was silence, shaped like loyalty, and perhaps like love. The turning point. In time, as Mazarin had predicted, the rebels quarrelled. Condé turned against Orléans. Parlement muttered against Condé. Their unity shattered, their armies weakened, and then Mazarin returned. When his carriage rolled once more through the gates of Paris, the boy king at his side, Anna stood waiting at the palace steps. Their eyes met, hers with relief, his with quiet triumph. The Queen and her cardinal reunited. The Fronde was not yet ended, but its fury was broken. Together they would finish what they had begun. The fires of the Fronde had cooled. Paris still bore scars, barricade-strewn streets, memories of hunger and blood, but the royal authority had survived. Anne of Austria had stood firm, and beside her, though in exile and return, Cardinal Mazarin had never ceased to guide her hand. Yet as calm settled over France, a different storm brewed in the salons and corridors of power. Whispers, questions, suspicions. Was Mazarin merely the Queen's minister, or something more? The letters. Much of their intimacy lived on paper. Their correspondence, though carefully phrased, carried an undertone that courtiers would have given kingdoms to read. In one letter, written during his exile, Mazarin confessed, "My greatest sorrow, madame, is not to be beside your majesty. Every day away is torment. Believe me when I say all my thoughts are bound to you, and my heart belongs wholly to your service." Anna's reply, guarded yet revealing, came weeks later. "Monsieur le Cardinal, your absence weighs heavily on me. I read your words again and again, for they alone give me peace. May God hasten the day when I see you once more." To the world these were letters of loyalty, but between the lines something far more tender glimmered. Whispers at court at the Louvre, courtiers murmured behind closed doors. Duchess of Chevreuse, smirking. "Do you not see? He slips into her chambers at night, the Queen of France and her Italian cardinal. What a scandal for Europe." Count de Retz. Or perhaps she's wiser than we think. Better a clever Italian than the greedy princes who would devour her throne. Yet gossip was a weapon, and their enemies wielded it mercilessly. Pamphlets circulated claiming Mazarin used secret tunnels to visit the Queen at the Palais Royal. Some swore they had seen his shadow in her chambers after midnight. When one such libel reached Anna, she held it in trembling hands. Motteville, ever faithful, urged her to ignore it. Motteville. "Majesty, it is filth, unworthy of your eyes." Anna, her cheeks flushed, whispered bitterly, "Anna, they cannot forgive me that I trust one man above them all. They call it sin, because they cannot imagine loyalty without desire." And yet, in her heart she knew. Perhaps it was not entirely without desire. Yet a queen and a man one autumn evening after a council had dispersed, Mazarin lingered in Anna's private apartments. The fire crackled. Beyond the windows Paris lay quiet, subdued. Anna set aside a letter and looked at him with weary eyes. "Anna, they say you rule me, Giulio, that I am your puppet, that France dances to your strings." Mazarin smiled faintly, bowing his head. Mazarin. "And do you feel like a puppet, Majesty?" She gave a short, bitter laugh. Anna. "No, I feel like a woman who could not stand alone without you." The words slipped out more softly than she intended. For a heartbeat, silence hung between them. Then Mazarin spoke, his voice lower than before. "Mazarin. Anna, I have given all my life to ambition, to service. But with you it is different. You are not my crown. You are my soul's companion." Anna's breath caught, her heart thundering against her ribs. She looked away toward the fire, afraid of her own longing. "Anna, you speak too freely, Giulio. You forget who I am." Mazarin gently. "I never forget. You are my queen, but you are also yourself, and to me that is enough." Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, she rose swiftly, as if the act of standing might break the spell. "Anna, it grows late. Good night, Monsieur le Cardinal." Mazarin bowed, retreating. Yet their eyes met once more, and in that glance lingered everything unspoken. The boy king watches. All the while the young Louis XIV watched, silent, observant. He saw the way his mother leaned on Mazarin, how the minister's words shaped every royal decree. He heard the gossip even in his schoolroom. One day he asked Motteville bluntly, "Louis, do they truly say that Monsieur le Cardinal loves my mother?" The lady-in-waiting faltered, bowing her head. Motteville. Sire, people will say many things when they cannot understand loyalty. Louis frowned, thoughtful beyond his years. Louis. Then I will remember this. A king must trust no one fully, save himself. It was a lesson the boy would carry into his reign, long after both his mother and her cardinal were gone. Intrigue renewed. Though France had survived the Fronde, danger was never far. Spain still threatened at the borders. Nobles still schemed for influence. Mazarin moved deftly, balancing alliances, bribing some, exiling others. He purchased loyalty with gold, crushed opposition with cunning. To some, he was a saviour, to others a devil. But through it all, Anna defended him. At council, when lords demanded his dismissal, she rose in fury. Anna, you may strip me of my crown, but you will not strip me of the man who has been my strength. While I live, Cardinal Mazarin shall remain. The chamber fell silent. None dared oppose her further. In that moment, it was clear. The Queen and the Cardinal were bound together by politics, by trust, perhaps even by love too dangerous to name. A dangerous devotion. In the quiet of her chamber, Anna sometimes allowed herself a forbidden thought. What if I were not queen? What if he were not bound by the red robes of Rome? But she was queen, and he was a cardinal. Their bond, whatever it truly was, could never step into the light. And yet France itself was shaped by that bond. As Mazarin once wrote in a letter, words Anna read again and again until the paper wore thin. Without your majesty I am nothing. Without me I fear you would be betrayed. But together, we are France. By the early 1650s, the storms of the Fronde had begun to fade into memory. The barricades of Paris were gone, the noble army scattered, and the Parlement humbled. France, though scarred, stood united once more under its young king, Louis XIV. Yet Louis was still more boy than monarch. The true weight of rule rested on two figures, his mother, Anne of Austria, and her tireless minister, Cardinal Mazarin. But time, inexorable and merciless, was changing them all. The education of a King Louis was now a youth of 15. He trained in horsemanship, swordsmanship, and the elegant dance of court etiquette. Yet more important than these arts was the education of kingship itself. Mazarin often summoned the boy to his library, its shelves groaning with chronicles and state papers. There, beneath the dim light of candles, the cardinal instructed him in the secrets of power. Mazarin. Sire, never forget, a king must be both lion and fox, the lion to strike fear, the fox to outwit. Your enemies will come clothed as friends. Trust sparingly, reward loyalty, and above all keep power in your own hands. Louis, his young face solemn, nodded. Louis. And you, Monsieur le Cardinal? Should I trust you? Mazarin paused, then smiled faintly. Mazarin. Until the day I die, sire, my life is yours, and perhaps more than my life. From the doorway, Anna listened unseen, her heart both proud and uneasy, for she knew one day Louis must no longer lean on Mazarin, nor on her. Anna in reflection. In private, Anna began to feel the weight of years. She was past 40, her beauty softening, her body marked by age and sorrow. Once she had been the lonely Spanish bride, then the embattled regent. Now she was the mother of a king growing into manhood. One evening, speaking to her faithful Motteville, she sighed, "Anna, I have fought so long to hold the throne for him. Soon he will take it from my hands. And what then, Françoise? What is a queen without power?" Motteville, "Majesty, you will always be the mother of France, and perhaps you will still have him." Anna smiled faintly, though her eyes darkened. Anna whispering, "If God wills it." But in her heart she feared what the future might strip away. Mazarin's enemies. Though triumphant, Mazarin remained hated by many. Nobles grumbled at his foreign birth, mocking his Italian manners. Pamphlets still called him Anna's lover, her puppet master. At court, Condé seethed, exiled but unbroken, still plotting from afar. Spain pressed the borders, desperate to reclaim advantage. Yet Mazarin, with his endless patience, balanced diplomacy and war like a juggler with knives. He bribed allies, signed treaties, crushed uprisings. Each victory secured the crown for young Louis, and deepened the Queen's reliance on him. One night, after receiving news of her fragile peace with Spain, Anna clasped his hand with unguarded gratitude. "Anna, Giulio, without you I would have been lost. France would have been lost." He looked at her, his eyes weary but warm. "Mazarin, Majesty, I would endure 1,000 exiles, 1,000 hatreds if it meant standing beside you." Her hand lingered in his for a heartbeat too long. Then she withdrew, her mask of dignity returning. The awakening of Louis, so in 1654, Louis was crowned at Reims. The boy was now a king in his own right, though Anna and Mazarin still guided every step. Yet Louis was no longer the frightened child of the barricades. He had grown tall, graceful, handsome, with a pride that shone even in youth. He watched his mother and her minister closely, noting how they ruled together. One evening, after council, he spoke to Anna with sudden firmness. "Louis, Mother, I'm no longer a child. I must learn to command. If you and Monsieur le Cardinal decide all, how will I ever be king?" Anna, startled, tried to soothe him. "Anna, in time, my son. Your youth is still your shield. Let us bear the burden until you are ready." But Louis's gaze was sharp. "Louis, I will be ready sooner than you think." Mazarin, hearing these words later, smiled privately. He knew the day would come when Louis would cast aside every guide, every minister, yet for now the boys still needed them. A moment unspoken. In 1657, after a long day of negotiations, Anna and Mazarin sat together in her chamber. The hour was late. The palace hushed. Anna looked at him. His hair streaked with grey now, his face lined with toil. 17 years of partnership lay between them, forged in rebellion, exile, triumph, and unspoken longing. "Anna," softly, "what would I have been without you, Giulio?" He met her gaze, and for once he did not answer as minister to queen, but as man to woman. "Mazarin, alone and unhappy, and I would have been nothing at all." Silence fell, thick with everything they had never dared confess. Her hand trembled, but she did not take his. Instead, she whispered, "Anna, God forgive us both." And Mazarin bowed his head, as if in prayer, though whether to God or to her only he knew. The sun at the horizon. Louis grew impatient with shadows. Already courtiers flocked to him, eager to bask in his rising brilliance. The nobles who once defied him now bowed low, whispering "Le Roi Soleil," the Sun King. Anna watched with both pride and melancholy. Her boy was becoming a sovereign, his light eclipsing her own. Mazarin still guided him, but the balance was shifting. The dawn of a new reign was breaking, and with it the long alliance of Queen and Cardinal neared its end. By the late 1650s, the court of France glittered with new brilliance. Louis XIV was no longer a child. He was a young man of 20, tall, elegant, with the carriage of a sovereign. Courtiers whispered of his beauty, of his grace upon the dance floor, of the sudden fire in his eyes when crossed. But in the shadows behind this rising sun, the old order waned. Cardinal Mazarin, the cunning, patient minister who had steered France through storm and rebellion, was dying. A failing body illness clung to Mazarin like a relentless creditor. He coughed often, his strength faltered, and the vibrant charm that once held the court seemed dimmed by pain. Physicians fluttered around him with remedies, but he smiled wryly at their potions. Mazarin, to his doctor, "You may bleed me, dose me, pray over me, yet the truth remains. My time is running out." The doctor bowed, muttering reassurances he did not believe. In council, Mazarin's voice grew hoarse, his hands trembled as he turned the pages of treaties. Yet his mind was sharp still, cutting as ever. He would not release the reins until the very last. Last lessons for a king. In February 1661, sensing the nearness of death, Mazarin summoned Louis to his bedside. The chamber was heavy with incense, the curtains drawn to soften the light. The young king knelt close, his dark eyes intent. Mazarin, weakly, "Sire, remember what I taught you. Distrust the great lords. They hunger always for your crown. Trust only yourself. Rule alone, as your father never could. Be both king and minister. France must never again belong to favourites or councils." Louis clasped the old man's hand. "Louis, and what of you, Monsieur le Cardinal? What of your place?" Mazarin gave a faint smile. "Mazarin, when I am gone you shall find no successor. That is my last gift. Rule with your own hand. Become the state itself." The words struck Louis like a flame in the dark. Later, he would repeat them with pride. "L'État, c'est moi. I am the state." But in that moment he was still a son kneeling beside a dying father figure. Each Anna's vigil, Anna of Austria spent long hours at Mazarin's side. The years had aged her too. Lines marked her once radiant face, silver threaded her hair. But her devotion had not dimmed. One night, when attendants had gone, she sat alone with him. Anna, whispering, "You promised me we would triumph, Giulio, and we did. But must triumph end so soon?" Mazarin looked at her with eyes softened by weakness, yet still filled with the same loyalty he had carried for 17 years. "Mazarin, Majesty, Anna, do not grieve. We have held France together, you and I. That is victory enough." Tears brimmed in her eyes, though she blinked them away. "Anna, when you are gone, who will stand beside me?" He reached, with failing strength, to touch her hand. "Mazarin, your son. He will be greater than both of us." The silence between them was thick with all the words they had never dared to speak. The end of an era. On March 9th, 1661, Jules Mazarin died at the age of 58. The court mourned officially, but many secretly rejoiced. At last, the hated Italian was gone. Anna did not show her grief in public, but behind closed doors, Motteville saw her weep as she had not wept even for her husband. Motteville, in her memoirs. The Queen was struck to the heart by the loss of Cardinal Mazarin. Those who knew her understood that she had lost more than a minister. She had lost her truest companion. The young king's declaration. A few days later, Louis XIV gathered his ministers. They waited, expecting him to announce a successor to Mazarin. Instead, the young monarch stood tall, his eyes burning with new resolve. Louis: Gentlemen, I shall govern my realm alone. From this day forward, I will have no prime minister. All matters will come to me. France shall know its king. Stunned silence followed. Then bows murmured assent. The age of regents and cardinals was over. The Sun King had risen. Anna in the shadows. Anna of Austria lived on, but her role was finished. She no longer guided policy. She no longer fought battles of intrigue. She had done her duty, protected her son's throne, guided him to manhood, kept France whole. Now she drifted into the twilight of her life, quieter, more pious, retreating into prayer. But those who watched her closely saw that something in her had dimmed forever after Mazarin's death. As Motteville wrote, Her Majesty seemed a widow once more, though this time of the heart. The Great Alliance, Queen and Cardinal, Regent and Minister, woman and man, had ended with a deathbed and a vow unspoken. But France would never forget the years when a foreign queen and a foreign cardinal held the crown together through war, rebellion, and scandal. And in the quiet chambers of history, one question still lingers. Was it only power that bound them, or was it love? The death of Cardinal Mazarin in 1661 left a silence in Anna of Austria's world that no prayer, no council, no ceremony could fill. For 17 years he'd been her shield, her counsellor, her companion in both politics and solitude. Now she walked the long corridors of the Louvre and the Palais Royal as though a shadow trailed her, the absence of the man who had given her strength. Retreat from power. With Mazarin gone, Anna's role in government ended. Her son, Louis XIV, declared boldly that he would rule alone. Ministers and courtiers, astonished, bowed before the young king's will. Anna did not protest. She had fought long enough. She had carried France through storms of war and rebellion. Now her task was complete. But to those who knew her best, the transformation was striking. The fiery queen regent who had faced down parlements and princes seemed to fade into quiet piety. She spent more hours in chapels, less in council chambers. Motteville, in her memoirs, Her Majesty grew more silent after the death of Cardinal Mazarin. It seemed her soul had lost its echo. Though she still smiled for her son, her heart was heavy with loss. Yet the mother of the son Louis, now 23, shone with dazzling brilliance. Courtiers flocked to him as planets around their star. He danced, he hunted, he commanded armies and councils. He was no longer the child who once clutched his mother's hand in terror. Anna watched him with pride and sorrow. One evening she sat with him in her private chamber. "Anna, my son, I see in you the king your father never was, strong, decisive, glorious, but do not forget compassion. Majesty without mercy is tyranny." Louis bent to kiss her hand. Louis. You taught me to be strong, Mamma. I shall never forget it. But now France must see her king, not her mother. The words were spoken without cruelty, yet Anna felt the distance between them widening. She was still his mother, but no longer his guide. Illness and decline. In the early 1660s, Anna's health began to fail. Pains gripped her chest. Fevers left her weak. Physicians murmured of tumours, of maladies beyond their art. She bore it with dignity, but in private she confessed to Motteville. Anna, perhaps it is God's mercy that I suffer, for had I been too happy in this world, I might have forgotten heaven. Yet her suffering was not only of the body. Loneliness pressed on her soul. Without Mazarin her days seemed longer, emptier. Sometimes in the still of night she would open a small casket where she had kept a handful of his letters, the few that survived the years of secrecy and fire. She read them slowly, tracing the lines with trembling fingers. Anna, whispering to herself, Giulio, you said together we were France, but without you I am only a widow twice over. Final days, by 1665, her strength was nearly gone. She retired more often to Val de Grace, the convent she had founded in gratitude for the birth of her sons. There, among nuns and incense, she sought peace. Louis visited her often, kneeling beside her bed. The great Sun King seemed for a moment once more the boy who had once hidden from mobs in Paris. Louis, softly, Mamma, do not leave me yet. I still need you. Anna smiled faintly, touching his cheek. Anna, no, my son, you no longer need me. You are France now. I gave all my life so you might be strong enough to stand alone. Promise me only this, that you will remember I loved you more than crown, more than life. Tears glistened in the young king's eyes, though he bowed his head to hide them. Death of a Queen. On January 20th, 1666, Anne of Austria died at the age of 64. Paris mourned, though not with the same passion that had followed Mazarin's death. To the people she had long since withdrawn into the shadows, but to those who knew her story, the lonely Spanish princess, the scorned queen, the triumphant regent, her passing marked the end of an extraordinary chapter in France's history. She was buried at the Basilica of Saint-Denis, beside her husband Louis XIV, though her heart had long belonged elsewhere. Legacy historians would argue for centuries. Was she merely a dutiful regent, or did she love Mazarin as man as well as minister? Her loyal Motteville wrote in defence, Her Majesty was too noble of heart to descend to weakness. But the surviving letters, the glances caught in candlelight, the very loyalty that outlived scandal and exile, whisper another possibility. Perhaps the truth lies not in history's judgment, but in the silence Anna carried to her grave, a silence that spoke of devotion deeper than politics, of a companionship the world could never openly acknowledge. And thus ended the story of Anne of Austria, stranger at court, mother of the Sun King, and the woman who, with her Italian cardinal, held France together in its most perilous hours. The great hall of Versailles blazed with light. Mirrors reflected endless chandeliers. Courtiers in silks and lace bowed before the radiant figure of Louis XIV. The Sun King had ascended to his full glory, and France, dazzled, revolved around him like planets around the sun. Yet in that brilliance lingered the shadows of two figures whose hands had shaped his path, Anne of Austria and Jules Mazarin. The hidden architects. Historians would debate endlessly what bound them. Some saw only politics, a foreign queen and a foreign minister clinging together in a hostile court, surviving by mutual need. Others insisted passion burned beneath the veil of duty. The truth lay somewhere between. Together they had weathered the fury of the Fronde, defied parlements, humbled nobles, and preserved the monarchy for a frightened child who would become the most absolute monarch in Europe. Without their alliance, Louis XIV might never have reigned as he did. Whether born of love, ambition, or both, their bond was the keystone of France's survival. The mirror of history. Memorists of the time left their guarded testimonies. Motteville, loyal to her queen, wrote of Anna's dignity and denied all scandal, yet admitted the affection that exceeded the ordinary bounds of politics. Ambassadors from Spain and Venice whispered of nightly visits and secret passages. Pamphleteers mocked the Queen's cardinal with vulgar ink. Centuries later, novelists would seize the tale, weaving romance from rumour. Alexandre Dumas would pen intrigues of musketeers and queens, forever colouring Anna and Mazarin with shades of forbidden passion. The historical truth remained elusive, and perhaps that was its greatest power. The Queen's silence Anna herself took the secret to her grave. In her final years she spoke little of the past. When questioned, she deflected with dignity or prayed. But those who had seen her with Mazarin, the way her eyes softened when he entered, the grief that hollowed her face at his death, knew that something more than politics had lived between them. Perhaps it was not the fiery romance of ballads, but a quieter, fiercer devotion, a partnership of minds and hearts, bound by necessity, yet deepened by trust until it became indistinguishable from love. A nation transformed. Their legacy was not merely personal. The France they left behind was stronger, more centralized, more prepared for the reign of Louis XIV. The Sun King inherited a throne secure, not trembling on the edge of rebellion. He inherited lessons of suspicion and solitude, taught by Mazarin's dying words, and he inherited the steel resolve of his mother, who had fought all of Paris to protect him. When Louis declared, "L'État c'est moi," he was not only the product of his own ambition, he was the culmination of their alliance.